Okay, I'm just getting the live stream sorted out. I think I've just about done it. Okay, I'm just getting the live stream sorted. You can probably hear me in the background talking to myself there. I've just cut the sound off from the monitor channel. Okay. Jacob's appeared, or Jacob, sorry. I'm here. Interesting. It's funny how people have to announce their appearance in the live chat. Okay, so I'm going to be referring to some startup procedure notes. But before we do that, let's go and have a quick look at the route we're going to be following this evening. So here's the flight plan on Navigraph. So obviously I've got the IFR high diagram in place because we are going to be using airways. So we're going to go to Bovary here, fly down B469 to top here, and then a couple of other routes on the way in. So this is going to be a bit of an academic exercise in a way before we actually get to the flight, to show people how to program airways into the G1000, which is not so obvious, but it can do it. It's very good at it. Also, we'll look at how you can pull Simbrief flight plans straight into the G1000 as well. And again, not obvious. Okay, so we're going to jump inside, and I'm going to work through the procedure to get the airplane up and running. We'll skip doing the flight plan until I've got the engines running, because we'll be talking about things in the G1000 for some time, which means we'll probably flatten the batteries if we didn't do something about that. So let's go and at least get the airplane up and running. I'm just going to take the yokes off while I do it, just so it's easy to see what we're doing. So batteries come on, and the generators can come on straight away. The bus tie goes to auto, and then the oxygen supply goes to PAX auto. We push the button in, and then overhead we go and put the nav lights on. So I'm going to try doing this without using the shortcut keys, just to familiarise myself as well with how this works. So we'll go and turn some lights on in the cabin as well, which might help a little bit because it's quite early in the morning. I've advanced time so the sun is at least up so we can see what we're doing, but I'm brightening things up as I go as well. So now I have to remember where things are now. So pump 1 and 2 can go to auto. The hydraulic pump can go to auto, which is here. If I can put the mouse on it with it. Oh, you have to click on it, sorry. And the ELT, which is the emergency transmitter, location transmitter. Again, that's reversed at the moment. They need to fix that. The passenger signs, we can put that on. Yeah, put all your electronic devices away, please, as well as just the belts. The heating section on the right, ADS AOA can go to auto, so that's the probe heats essentially. And co-pilot side, pressurization mode can go to auto. Bleed can go to both. And air conditioning can go to auto as well. So navigation display. So this is where I'm going to skip doing the flight plan immediately and go and get the engine started. So we'll go and continue on through. So I calibrate the altimeters. We'll leave the master control panel until later as well. We'll start the engines. So ignition is down here, so that goes to auto, and then we are going to start the right engine first. We'll wait for the startup to happen. Let's just check the volumes while I'm doing that, so make sure I don't drown you out as I did the other day. So just waiting for the engine to come up. So while that's happening, I can have a look at the link. So Eric's saying he found a website where he could get all aircraft free. Yep, Everybody knows about it, and it's piracy, it's illegal, and if you talk about it on my channel, I will boot you immediately. Everybody knows about it. Every software developer, every aircraft developer, it's a nightmare for them. Nobody seems to know how to get it to be shut down. And far more people are using it than will admit. But don't get me started on it. It'll just make me angry. If you even mention the name of that website in the live stream comments, I will ban you from the channel immediately. Anyway, so where was I? One of the engines is up and running, so let's go and get the other one up and running. Okay, so now we have the engines running and the generators running, obviously, we have some time, so we can go and look at programming the flight plan and we haven't got any hurry as such. Oh, let's put some more fuel in the airplane as well, because we're going to need a lot more than normal, I think. So let's go and fill this up a bit. Again, this is kind of cheating, filling it up after you've started the engines, but oh well. Okay, so what we're going to do is, using the navigation display, we're going to press the flight plan button, and I'm going to show you how you can load a Simbrief flight plan to begin with. So while you're looking at the flight plan screen, so all I've done is press the FPL button over on the right hand side. If you roll the outside of the FMS knob, then it comes up with this dialog at the bottom right, and it disappears after a few seconds. So you have a couple of seconds to do this. It shows active flight plan. If you open it and then roll the inner knob, it will go through the tabs, and you can then go to flight plan catalogue. Notice it keeps disappearing. So that's showing the flight plan catalogue. That is the view of my recent Simbrief dispatch jobs. Yeah. So if I scroll backwards and forwards, I can either show the active flight plan or the flight plan catalogue. If I select on that and put the cursor in there, I can then choose a flight plan, and I can click activate, and that will pull the flight plan straight from Simbrief straight into the G1000. Now I'm not going to do that. Okay, so let's press flight plan again, and it will come back to the default flight plan screen, because I want to show people how to program the G1000. Okay, so we select the FMS knob, and that puts us into the flight plan dialog, and we can use the outer wheel to scroll up and down, and we can obviously go and put in our route. So let's go and look at the text version. We're leaving Y car, so we go and open this up, click on keyboard to make it easy for myself, and type in Y car, Carnarvon, and press enter. And then we're leaving on runway 22. So we roll the inner knob again, and then we can roll the outer knob to select one and press enter again. So it's now leaving runway 22 at Y car. Then we can go down to the destination, and we're going to YPJT. So let's go and put in YPJT, which is Jandakot, and there it is, enter. And same deal again, we can roll the knob on the runway, and it will come up with the runways at Jandakot, and we can select, when are we landing on? Runway 06 left. So 06 left is highlighted, press enter, and enter again. So that's put the destination in. So now we get the fun and games. We're going to go direct to YSHK. So let's go to the en route and type in YSHK, so we're going to overfly Shark Bay. Okay, so it's an airport. Okay. Then we're going to go to OVL. So let's go and put OVL in. OVL. Press enter. Then we're going to go to a MIDI. So there's a few waypoints before we get into the airways. MIDDY. Enter. And then finally Bovry. So these are all directs in between them, okay? So Bovry, Borvi is the next one. Not Bovry, Borvi. BORVI. Enter. Okay, so the important thing now to put an airway in is we have to put the cursor on the next empty part in the en route. Okay? Because it will reference the waypoint before it. So then if we press the menu button, we can load an airway into the flight plan. So we press enter on it, and the airways, notice it says Borvi, at the top, so the airways will be the ones leaving Borvi. So I'll just show you this on the chart so you can make sense of it. So there's Borvi, and you can see there's an airway called B6. I've gone and put a waypoint in it now, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go and delete that waypoint. That one there. Remove. We can see the airway there goes down to top here. Okay? And it's gone and highlighted it now, so we can't even see the airway because it's underneath the label. This is where Navigraph starts to fall down. If you go and look in LittleNavMap with the labels on, we can see here, there's Borvi, B469 goes to top here. So in the aeroplane, we roll the knob on airway, and it comes up with the options. B469 is the first one, so press enter. So we enter the airway at Borvi, we take airway B469 and we exit at, and we roll the inner knob, and this shows you all of the waypoints along that airway. So if we get to Borvi, it's quite a long way along it, you can see the very next waypoint after Borvi, which is the one we're going to end at, is top here. So press enter. And then we roll the cursor down, so that shows us the route through the airway, so we're only staying on there for one leg in between waypoints. And then press enter. So we've now got an airway, so after Borvi we are taking this airway to top here. Okay, so we can roll down with our mouse. Notice as we roll, the map is moving to try and catch up to show us each part of it. So the next one we want to do, yeah, we can actually see it this time, is L514. We're entering at top here, and we're staying on L514. Let's have a look at the text description. So we are going L514 as far as Avpal. So we go back to the menu key, we load airway. Notice we put the focus after top here, so it picks up that we're putting the airway in after top here. So roll the inner knob, and we want L514. So it knows the airways that leave top here. Okay, so enter, and then we can go down to exit and open the dialog up, roll down, and if we find top here, we'll see what the next options are. So again, we're only staying on for one waypoint leg. Top here to Avpal. Press enter, and then go down to the bottom and press enter. So we've now got airway to top here, airway, if we scroll down, to Avpal, and we're going to do another one. So we're going to take Q38 to the PH waypoint. So let's go and go menu and load airway, enter, and open the airways up. Q38, enter, 2, and notice that we're staying on this one for a long way. So we're going to go through all of these waypoints on the way from Avpal all the way down to PH. Enter. So that gives us a a readout of those waypoints and the distances. Say load, enter. So we're getting more and more of our routing in. Okay, so that is actually the end of our routing on the using the airways, because then we go direct to the arrival. Yeah, or sorry, the approach, I should say. So we want to go and put the approach in next, but we haven't put a departure in either yet, so let's go and sort that out as well. Did we select what runway we were leaving? Yeah, we did. I'm just going to go and check the diagram of what we programmed in. So yeah, we've already done, we're not using a standard instrument departure, there isn't one for Carnarvon, but we are going to do a specific approach into Jandakot. So this is the RNAV 06 left PJTWB. So let's go and have a look. So we come back out of flight plan and we can go to procedures and we can select the approach, not the arrival, the approach. So press enter. We want RNAV 06 left, there it is. So press enter, and we want the B transition. And the reason for that, it will make sense when you look on the map. So if we go to that, scroll down, we're not going to bother putting minimums in. So there's the waypoints that are part of that. Whoops. Go to load and enter, and we've got our whole flight plan in. So what we've just done, essentially, is we're going to fly all the way down to PH. Then we got our own navigation from PH to the entrance into the approach. And that B approach begins at this waypoint out here. So it does this nice racetrack into Jandakot to come into, sorry, yes, Jandakot to come into the runway there, 6 left. So that's how you program by hand the airways. So if you didn't know, now you do know. So someone's asking, how do you use the keyboard? When you get to a dialogue which requires you to enter something, so let's just move the cursor around so we get to something. I'm just going to go into a blank space but then cancel it. So there's a blank space here, yeah? If you roll the inner knob, it comes up with the dialogue. Notice there's a tiny little icon there. It's actually an icon of a keyboard. If you click on it with the mouse, you can then type with your keyboard. Okay, so I'm not going to change that. Okay. So we've programmed the flight plan in. I've not put any altitudes into the flight plan. You could if you want to play with VNav. I'm not going to touch VNav today. We've started the engines. So then we could go and turn the taxi lights on overhead. Done. And go and line up. So now, were there any things I didn't do? I didn't configure the master control panel for the autopilot, did I? So let's go and have a quick look at the information for the departure runway. So we're going to be taking off runway 22. So 220 degrees. We'll go and pre-program into our heading, just so we don't get any big surprises when we engage autopilot. We'll also go and select our initial climb altitude, so we'll climb straight out to 10,000 feet, but we'll go higher en route. It's just 10,000 is a nice number for, I think the transitions in Australia tend to be 10,000, the transition altitudes, but also for the acceleration from 250 knots to faster. I wish they would put the shift modifier on the rolling of the knobs. Hopefully they will in an update. It's quite slow to select altitudes. We're going to use flight level change to climb out. We're going to use nav mode if we've got a flight plan programmed in and GPS is operating. So we also need to change the CDI mode to GPS. So that again, that's reset that. So we need to go and reset that back. There we go. Okay, where are we on the airfield? Why is this not showing us is a good question. There we are. So we're going to have to double back on ourselves and then backtrack, I think. So we'll figure it out in a moment. let's have a look on LittleNavMap as well. Sometimes LittleNavMap is a bit easier to look at than Navigraph in that respect. So yeah, there you go, look. So actually we could go forwards and then left, and then just double back on ourselves. So let's turn the head tracking on and center it up. So we're going over there. I'll move my joystick and stuff around, and I can actually go and sorry about that, turning my head round like an owl. Oh, I need to go and change the controls. I've got it, probably not got it set to 2-engine aircraft. Let's just check. No, I've got it on single engine, so we would have had some big problems with applying thrust on the takeoff, which would have been fun. Let's just try it now. Yep, they're working. Should we put the yokes back on while we're here? There we go. Notice the... yeah, nav has gone to GPS, brilliant, good. But we'll have to double check that. So we've got a bit of a trek down the runway, but it's very quiet here, not a problem. Have a look outside. So we can put the flaps to takeoff position while we are rolling. It takes a while in this aircraft for that to happen. I'm rubbish at steering from the external view, as you can see. Terrible at it. We are being pushed around a little bit by the wind though. I'm going to turn off head tracking so I can read the live stream comments while we're taxiing. Okay, let's sit back up. One of the advantages of head tracking is you can just sit up straight and see over the nose. Okay, let's slow down. So we've got half a chance of making the turn. So we've got 5 degrees flap. Okay, so let's just hold the aircraft there for a moment. Go and look. So we want the landing lights. Oh, this is where, if the click spots are not very big, head tracking is an absolute nightmare. It's great for looking around, but rubbish for hitting click spots. Strobes on. And I think that's just about it. This is interesting. There's obviously a bug here in this initial release of the aircraft. You get the warnings coming up and you open them and there's never anything there. Also, you might have noticed there's nothing in the engine section either, but you can go back and get all your normal display in place. Let's go and increase the range on the map so we actually do get some information. Okay, so we are going to take off. So park and brake off. I'll put the head tracking back on for the takeoff. throttle. Holding the centre line, it's wanting to corkscrew left quite strongly. That would be the wind, weather vane and the tail round. Okay, starting to rotate gently. You can see it trying to push sideways. Gear up. So we'll say goodbye to Carnarvon. Guess we should look from the outside view, shouldn't we? Okay, let's get inside, see what's going on. Obviously it's difficult to read your airspeed or anything when you're inside. Okay, so autopilot on. It's switched on, GPS is on, so it's beginning to roll left. We'll go for flight level change has been maintained. So it's going to be using the speed for flight level change, which I didn't set, so I better do that in a hurry. And there you go, look, small click spots. I'm just pulling the speed reference up, otherwise we'll end up going far too slowly. So you can see I've just moved it up to 150 knots, so it's lowering the nose to make that happen. And I'm going to increase it out further too. And there we go again, look, just missed the click spot by a few pixels, and the mouse caused it to zoom. Okay, so let's go and increase this range again. So the first legs are quite long, but then it gets a little bit more involved along the way. So just going up to 180 knots. Let's go and increase that a bit further, out to 200 knots. So you can see we're on our way now. I was going to double check the transition altitude, wasn't I? Does this give it here on the airport chart? Probably doesn't, because you normally get on the standard instrument departure charts. What other charts have we got for the airport? Charts, procedures, departures, there aren't any. So we're going to take 10,000 feet, which is pretty common in Australia for the transition altitude. So Edmund's asking, where do I choose where to fly from? Pretty much at random. I've been flying around Australia recently purely because it's daylight when I get a chance to fly, which tends to be late at night. So I'm in the other side of the world from Australia. So late night for me is morning in Australia. And obviously, while flying in the dark is a great academic exercise, it's not great from a watching point of view, because all you're going to see is darkness outside and dimly lit instruments in the cockpit. You know, which is great for if you're doing an academic kind of, you know, night flying exercise, but you don't actually get to see anything. Okay, so we're just coming up to 10,000 feet. When we get to 10,000, we will need to change the barometric pressure, which we can do, if I remember where. Is it in the transponder section? I can never remember where they put it. I mean, we can change the baro here. I thought they had a standard option in here as well, though. Or maybe you have to press it to go to standard. Apparently not. So we want 2992. And I think that's synchronized because it's the same unit. Yes, it is. So it's saying the same on both the pilot and the co-pilot side. So we're at 10,000 feet. The landing lights can come off. And we can continue on up to our cruise altitude, which I think was 37,000 today. Notice now we are not constrained. The aircraft is accelerating anyway because it's leveled out. I don't know what altitude this thing can fly to be honest, so should we take it to 18 to begin with and see how we get on with that. So we'll do a flight level change, but we'll change the speed reference. See, look, that click spot on that is so small you can miss it so easily. So where is the speed marker gone? Can I just press the middle of it to put it on the speed we're doing? No, apparently I can't. Maybe I have to... it only appears once you click flight level change, okay. So it centers on it at that point. So we'll say 260 knots. And we'll go flight level change. So it'll be interesting to see what it does. Will it dip? Will it dip the nose and descend? No, it's just going to take its time. Okay, let's take the speed reference back to allow it to climb. Again, did it again, look. Flight level change. Let's go for 230 knots then, seeing as it's not liking it. I mean, we could just boot it with the throttles, which we have anyway, and go vertical speed and see what sort of rate the aeroplane hangs on to. So let's let it climb at, say, 2,000 feet a minute and see how fast it goes. We'll have to watch it very closely though. So obviously vertical speed is dangerous, because if you don't keep an eye on it, you can stall the aeroplane. But as long as you're, within parameters that you have thought about, you should be okay. I just realised I didn't raise the flaps. We're so busy talking about other things. That would help the speed, wouldn't it? Enormously. Service ceiling's 41,000 according to USAF. Yeah, so completely, this is because I pulled the live stream up, I'm not following the procedure anymore. Completely forgot about the flaps. And that should have been, a few thousand feet off the ground, we would have raised flaps at the same point we engaged autopilot. I guess it might be fun along the way to... Have we got any... Oh, we've got the VOR that's behind us. What's the range on it? So if we go show information for the Carnarvon VOR, 180 miles. Wow, that's huge. 11300. Let's try it. So we'll switch over here to Nav1 and we'll go 11300 and we'll switch that to active. And we'll put on the distance measuring equipment, which is PFD options, DME. There we go. 30 miles behind us. Should put up the wind as well, so we can at least see what's going on. Put option 3 on. 296 degrees, 15 knots. So a side wind, called crosswind for us at the moment. It's not too bad though. It's quite still actually. Normally this sort of altitude we'd be looking at 40-50 knots, but we would in Europe. It's obviously quite still in Australia today. I've turned the lights off up here, so I've got navs and strobes on. Let's have a look. Yep, the landing lights have come off. That's behaving. So you can see the nav lights are towards the front and the strobes are flashing away. You should have a strobe on top. Yep, that's going as well. Very good. What's the difference between airways and intersections? Okay, let's go and have a look at the map and then hopefully I'll be able to explain it to you. So you can see on the map you've got various airways going all over the place, and there's a good point down here where I can show you an intersection, or actually no, it's a transition, isn't it? So an intersection is what it sounds like actually. It's where a number of airways pass through the same point. Yeah? Does that make sense? So there's an intersection right there. When you hear about transitions, that is your point from somewhere else. So you could, if we haven't got one here, but if we had a departure, for example, that came out over this bay, and then one of the extra bits off the end of that departure went towards one of these airways, that would be called a transition. It's kind of the route between one procedure and another. That's kind of one way. I guess it's difficult to describe. Again, here, if we had we haven't got an approach, so we've only got the arrival here. If we had an approach and there was a specific part of, or a specific variation of the approach that took it out to the PH VOR, then that would be the transition, if that makes sense. If the approach had lots of other variations as well. You see it on the big airports commonly. I can show you on LittleNavMap actually without ruining the route. So if I turn the Jet Airways off for a moment, if I go and show you somewhere, one of the big airports like Stansted's got some good ones. So if we go and show the procedures for Stansted, and you say, you can see, yeah, they're actually marked in the latest version of LittleNavMap. Oh, it's gone and moved up. Blooming. So let's go and move our map back again. I just turned off the map tracking so it won't do that to us. So there was Stansted. So you can see here you've got an ILS approach, and there are several transitions. So they are extra bits that take you out to other waypoints, or to two particular waypoints. Yeah. So that's what transitions are. They're kind of extra bits of route to help you join up to, commonly to airways, for example. Let's switch that back off, then I can go back to where we were. So we're just approaching YSHK, so we should get the data up here. There we go, look. So we're going from the runway to YSHK as our first waypoint. We're 8 miles out, 185 degrees. We're at 18,000 feet now. We're absolutely flat out on the engines. Well, I say flat out. It seems to be the fastest you can push it is 90%, which is max. Although this has got, let's just try it. Let's toga. Let's climb. Let's cruise. So let's see if they've programmed this at all. So it's only lost 2% look to go to cruise from max. But that may have reprogrammed the engines in a slightly different way, you know, according to cruise. Did we have any lighting controls for the passengers? Yes, we did. It was over here, wasn't it? So obviously now we're in cruise, we could tell people they can turn their seatbelts off. Or take their seatbelts off, I should say. The reason airways are useful when you're programming a long route is, for example, I chose the airway Q38 and I told it I came onto that airway at Avpal and I left it at PH. So by choosing the airway, it programmed all of these waypoints in automatically in between. So when we get further down there in the flight plan, you'll see that happen, that, you know, that all of those waypoints will be in the route. You can see them there, look, there's a whole stack of them. Should we take this up higher then, seeing as we've got quite a long way to go? So altitude select. Again, I'm going to hold the left mouse button down and then wait for a few minutes while this counts up on the target altitude. So I'm just watching this. I'm holding the left mouse button down. I can continue holding it and move away from the knob. So we'll take it out to 35,000 feet maybe. Although the flight plan said 37, so I guess we ought to correspond, ought to agree with it. As I said, 37,000 feet, there we go. So this is pretty interesting. Let's try a flight level change and see if it can just, if I retreat the speed slightly, if it will let me. So let's say don't let the aeroplane get any slower than 230 knots, but let it climb on flight level change and see how high it can get on 230 knots. It may run out of speed at some point. I guess we need to advance the throttles back to climb, don't we? So on the climb descent we're getting 90%. On max we get 92%. Interesting. I'll leave it on max and see if we can blow the engines. I don't think it models failures. Oh, so thank you for all the nice comments, guys. I'm just sharing things as I learn them. So, yeah, I'm not a real pilot. I'm just an enthusiast like anybody else that's playing around with a simulator, and I'm just sharing what I've learned with the community, really. Paying it forward. I will freely admit when I don't know something. It's funny, one of my biggest aids recently with learning what the various acronyms mean has been Google Bard. If you go to bard.google.com, if you've got a Google account, you can type in any question into its AI engine, and it's got a large language model, and they've sucked up most of the internet. So you can ask it, for example, just as I did the other day, what does PED belts mean in the PH100 cockpit? And it came back immediately, said, oh, that's the personal electronic devices and belts warning switch, telling people to switch them off. So it's a great way, if you haven't got documentation for an aeroplane, head to one of the AI engines, either Bing or Google Bard, and ask it natural language questions about the thing you want to know. Obviously you have to be quite specific and give it enough to go on. If you just say, what does PED belts mean, it won't know. But if you say, what does the PED belts label mean in the PH100 cockpit, it will know. It will figure it out. Earlier on, I wrote into it, how do you select a Simbrief flight plan in the G1000 from working title for Flight Simulator, and it came out with a list of instructions of exactly what to click on. If you did want to know that, you can, if you didn't see this earlier, while you're looking at the flight plan screen, if you just roll the outer knob of the FMS switch while there's nothing highlighted, it pops up that little dialog at the bottom corner. But there is you do have to have, I think, possibly the Navigraph add-on for it to work, for it to do it. Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, so if you roll that one and then roll the inner one, it comes up with a flight plan catalogue, and I could go and select my Simbrief flight plan, which I made earlier while I was trying this out. So I could press the knob and then roll down to it and press enter, press activate, and it will ask me, do I want to wipe my flight plan out and load that one instead? Which I don't want to. Okay, I might go and grab a coffee in a moment. We've got a long way to go, haven't we? Although We're at 23,000 feet, we're still climbing 1,000 feet a minute. We're running out of beans, aren't we, on the engines? It's up to 93% on the N1. We're still running the engines on max, which is probably not advisable. So I think it just does take a long time to get to altitude in these sort of aeroplanes. Because it's only a tiny little jet. So does this give us an estimated time at the destination? I'm not sure that it does actually. Do we get a progress screen on the G1000? We go back. I'll presumably it'll do it on the flight plan screen, won't it? Oh, it doesn't give timings though. Top of descent in an hour. Okay. So that gives you some idea. It's interesting, once you have got this set up with Navigraph, the working title G1000 understands it, so you can pull up the charts. So we can see there's our approach. We're coming into PJTWB and then we'll be coming in runway 31. Very cool. Obviously you can click the shortcut buttons at the bottom, so we've only got an approach programmed, which is the only thing it's got a chart for, so that's why it's showing us it. We can, I think we can we reverse the colouring on the maps? Fit width, minimums, profile, plan, header, rotate. Can we not have night mode? Maybe not. Oh well. Show map, go back, get rid of the flight plan. Is it possible to have the charts at full screen? Well no, because that's in the G1000. Besides, if you've got Navigraph, you can run it alongside and just Alt-Tab across to it and have a look at it, which is what I've done there. And obviously you can then see yourself on the map, chugging along. Obviously, when you're in here, you can then go to the charts. So we could pull up, for example, there's the actual chart with that, with the overlay. The same one we saw in the aircraft, but obviously in the full Navigraph client you get to see it and zoom in and mess around with it and go and read it in detail. So yeah, I presumed 10,000 feet for the transition altitude, leaving Carnarvon. So it's the same, or hopefully it's the same as the transition altitude at Perth. They vary in the UK, I'm not sure they vary in Australia. Should we see what the weather's doing as well while we're here in Navigraph? So if we go and switch on the weather, is there any rain? Put the radar on. There's weather over to the east, and there's more weather towards Sydney and Brisbane, but nothing really over Perth. Good. What about cloud cover? Cloud cover at... We can get the cloud cover at different altitudes, so say at 34,000 feet, 14,000 feet, 10,000 feet, there's nothing. It's a nice clear day. Always good. I think we can get wind barbs up as well, which is sometimes useful. I actually prefer the way the wind barbs are drawn on LittleNavMap. They're a little bit thin here, so we've got a slight headwind, or crosswind here, but it will turn into a headwind as we get further down the track, look. But it's not very strong. So the way you read these is the number of marks on the tail, and the thickness of those marks denotes how strong the wind is. So tiny little thin marks means nothing, basically. But yeah, if we compare that against what LittleNavMap will show us, if we go and turn on the wind barbs, wind at cruise altitude, so if we do climb to 37, yeah, you can see that they're not very strong at all. If you go and look elsewhere in the world, you can see you get the stronger ones out of the ocean now, look, towards Madagascar. And there's some really strong ones out over the islands. But over the west coast of Australia, it's quite still today. I think also if you have Navigraph, you can put it up within the simulator without leaving the screen. So you can do the same trick in here and it will pop it open, but obviously I'm already running it, so there's absolutely no point. There's a load of stuff up here I never use, things like the navlog. Never used it. So this is going to be quite chilled out for the next hour, I'm afraid, so until we get to top of descent for Perth, there's not really going to be much to watch, I'm afraid. Oh hello, we got company. Should we name and shame them, whoever it is that wants their 5 minutes of fame? Dog Breath. Oh, great name. Just out of interest, what sort of aeroplane was it? M346. What's an M346 when it's at home? I'm going to ruin their day by leaving it looking at the instruments, so they won't be able to become famous. Yeah, to be honest, you're not going to get famous on my channel. Only a few people watch it. I'm going to go and look that up. M346. It's the Air Mackie military trainer jet. Yeah, look at the that's interesting then. So as we climb in altitude, the air's getting thinner, but the target airspeed, even though this hasn't, although it's showing Mach number at the top now, it's maintaining the same speed even though it's a different indicated speed, if that makes any sense. That's interesting. And the engines are becoming more efficient as we get higher, so we're actually, I think the climb rate might be even increasing. So jet engines get more and more efficient at higher altitude. The limiting factor typically is that the wings will no longer maintain enough lift in the thin air. Well, that's as far as I understand. I could be wrong with that. But as far as I understood, yeah, jet engines at higher altitude become more and more efficient. So let's pull up that flight plan page again and have a look at the numbers. Top of descent in 48 minutes. So I'm going to go and make a drink. If I put this on open window layout, minimal. So what we can also do, yeah, we've got top of descent illustrated here. What was that for? The Skyhawk. That's I need to open the different aircraft performance, don't I? So let's go for CJ4 is probably similar, isn't it? Whoa, what sort of rubbish descent rate is? Oh no, it's top of climb, sorry. It's showing a very, very gentle drop in. Let's go and put some range rings on. Well, maybe that is about right then. I'm just setting the screen up so I can leave something on the screen while I go and get a drink. There we go. If I leave that over in the corner, you can at least see where we are. We'll also go and have a look at the volumes and make sure it's not thunderingly loud. Okay, so I'm going to go and get a coffee and I'll be back with you at the top of descent, I guess. So I'll just go and mute my microphone. I'll be back with you later on. I just got coffee, and it just occurred to me. Let me just turn the airplane back up a little bit. Just occurred to me while making coffee that, yeah, I did set the cruise for 37. That's good then. And we've got to 37. Brilliant. So we got there quite easily. We could go and turn the... actually, no, it's running at max power. So let's pull that back to cruise and see what it will get away with then in terms of airspeed when set to cruise. So 94% N1. Yeah, so notice compared to low altitude, you're getting a higher percentage on N1 than you would at low altitude. You know, for the same throttle setting. Okay, we just changing course at Borvi. So we are on our first airway. So if we go and have a quick look at Navigraph, and we have to resize it because there's a bug in Navigraph. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that over the time. So yeah, they put the label right smack bang where the label for the airway is. So which airway is that? Is it B469? I think it might be. We can find out actually if we go and click on the pencil up here. Borvi to Topia. Oh no, it's from Topia onwards. So it's L514. There we go. So that is not an airway, that's just our routing. That's our first airway that we're using. From Topia to Avpal. Very good. Not a lot to see at the moment. Obviously when we get to Perth we'll have a lot more to see. I guess I could leave this looking out the window at the Western Australia scrolling slowly past. Well, actually a passenger window would be good fun, wouldn't it? Let's go and sit in the passenger seat and have the whole passenger experience. So if we lower ourselves down to the seating position of somebody on this flight who's looking out of the window, wondering if they're nearly there yet. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to go and drink my coffee. So rather than slurp with the microphone on, I'm going to go and cut my microphone off. Just before I go, Edin Tarafta, is that how you pronounce your name? Are you going to make a beginner guide for the Unibuild A300? I've already done the first look at it. I could do a video on starting the aircraft up, I guess, from cold and dark, just walking through it, but I'd already done that, I think, in the first look. I've done a flight in it as well. I think I did a live stream. But yeah, I'll certainly be covering the A300 more, because I've only really scratched the surface with it so far. So JC Corbett is saying Jandakot is my home airport. So yeah, we'll find out what it's rendered like. I did look online just before I went online, and I found somebody's made Carnarvon, I think. I'm not sure if they've made Jandakot for it. There's like a free version at flightsim.2. But I'll have to have a dig around. Anyway, I'm going to go and drink my coffee. Okay, I'm back. Let's just check the volume levels. So we're going to look inside the airplane. Straighten up the head tracking. How are we doing? Top of descent, according to the wonderful systems on board, is just before AVPAL. So we're not far away. 33 miles from top of descent. 37,000 feet. I have no illusions this thing can probably descend like a meteorite, but I don't think we'll push it today. We'll just fly it in smoothly. The first flight I did in it, the first look flight, that was the first time I ever landed it. And you can land it incredibly slowly. I don't know how accurate that is, but I ran out of lift at about 70 something knots over the ground, which seemed a bit low, but although it's a very small airplane and had no passengers or anything, so maybe full flaps, and there's a small amount of positive thrust at idle, so maybe it can just run out to incredibly low speeds. Out over the co-pilot's side. The coast. Hurrah! You can see the coast in the distance. How are we doing for fuel, by the way? I haven't actually checked it. I put far too much fuel in on purpose so we didn't have to worry about it. So we're using 335 pounds per hour each engine. We've got 1300. So we've got enough for about 4 hours. So yeah, I kind of overfilled it. So this has actually got really respectable range then. Actually no, that's pounds per hour, yeah, so we've got 650 each side, 1300 altogether. Yeah, that works out, yeah. Or 2 hours, because of course, because there's 2 engines, yeah, I'm being an idiot. But it's still pretty good. Okay, so we've got nothing to do until we get into descent, really. Should go and have a look around the cabin. Don't think. The thing that always makes me laugh about this aeroplane is the toilet works. So you can go and click on this, I think. Yeah. I don't know if they've got anything crazy stupid, like, does the flush work? Oh my word, it really does. Oh, that's just nuts. One of the default views is actually sitting on the toilet. Somebody's got some humour, I guess. Can you pull out toilet rolls or anything? No. There's no other hidden click spots where they've hidden jokes anywhere, is there? That's a good point, actually. The lights, well, that's just a sticker for the devices, I'm guessing. Are there lights anywhere for that? So if we were to go and turn that warning on, excuse me as I drunkenly wander down the cabin. Let's turn on the warnings for personal electronic devices. Oh, it does light up. Awesome. So no phones, no laptops, and do your seatbelt up. Very good. They don't need to sit down just yet. Ah! There we go. We're turning. Almost fell over then. Headbutted the wall. So we are turning towards Perth. We're about 100 miles out now, so we should be beginning descent. So let's go and sort that out. So I'll center the view up and turn the head tracking off, so we can, because it's going to take a while to wind this back out. So we're going to drop it to 10,000 feet initially. So we've got 10 miles to run to Hines. So we're on that airway now that we programmed in at the start of the flight. I can't believe they programmed the toilet flush sound in. That's quite funny. So I'm going to set our target altitude for 10,000 for the transition altitude, basically. There we go, so 10,000 set in, and we will begin a... Now, let's work this out. So we've got this racetrack anyway, so we've got plenty of time. So if we're 100 miles away, and we want to lose 37,000 feet, wasn't it? Let's just see what flight level change will do. So if I pull the throttle back, so let's keep an eye on the descent rate. So that's not quite enough. You'd want about 2,500 feet a minute, wouldn't you? 2,000-ish. Let's have a look at 1800 and see what that looks. We can cheat to an extent. We can use LittleNavMap and see the vector. So if we go and open the window layout back to default, and we can open up the... No, we were at 37, weren't we? Yes, that's set in. So yeah, we've overrun obviously the beginning of the descent. So we need to come in a little bit steeper. So 1,800 feet a minute would have been fine. So there's 2,400 feet a minute, which is obviously now on a path that brings us back slowly closer. But we'll need some room to slow down as well. Although we're already below 250, we'll never get above 250 knots. That's better. Because obviously we're starting a bit higher than we normally would have been. Oh, Sim's just frozen. Give it a moment. There we go. So, how is this plane? What can we say about it? It looks the part. It's very simple to fly. It's got all the normal stuff you'd expect in terms of autopilot, so I expect it's the stock flight sim programming for the autopilot. It's got, you know, all of the buttons are there. It's got the full G1000 suite, which, you know, all works nicely. The button keypads work. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. The button keypads work, so you can actually use them for programming, which is quite cool. It's very straightforward. The only thing that's lacking at the moment really is the documentation isn't there yet. So there's this card that doesn't really mean much to anybody. I didn't realise that was there, by the way. That's quite cool. Isn't it amazing the things you discover when you're not really looking properly? So you can attach a GPU on the ground. That will save the batteries. So when I started this up earlier, because I didn't realise that was there, I started the engines while I was programming the flight plan, so I didn't go and flatten the batteries. So that's worth knowing about. But again, there's very little in the way of documentation with it so far, so there's certainly nothing in the way of like a pilot operating handbook or anything like that. Which, you know, if you're familiar with planes like this, it's not already a big problem. And I just worked my way around the cockpit and made a pragmatic startup procedure and just wrote, you know, this first draft all over it. But it's fairly straightforward to start up, to be honest. So let's go and zoom in on this display. So how are we doing? 29,000 feet and descending. And how are we doing on the altitude plot here? It's looking okay. Could probably do with coming down a bit so we're not in such a mad hurry to descend later on. There we go, that's much better. So we'll catch up with the descent rate we should have been on. Although this is the performance profile for a citation, so it's not worth putting too much stock in it. I don't think you get... I didn't put the numbers into the flight plan, so I don't think you get a dot on this. Do you get a dot on the G1000 showing the projected descent path? I'm not sure that you do. Because obviously that is just showing the target altitude, so we've set the transition altitude as the target for descent. It's a good point actually, we need to go and look up the weather at Jandakot. So if we pull up the information, open the airport and bring up the weather, so 1011 or 2985 inches. So we need to remember to do that when we get to 10,000 feet. I wonder if we've got anything in the way of floodlights. There's an upwash light. There's... I haven't really played with the lighting, to be honest. It doesn't really help for that light, does it? Is there a light back here pointing forwards? Maybe? No. I've not really played with lighting at all. That's the air conditioning outlet. I've not played with this either, so I don't know. Okay, yeah, the buttons are inoperative on it. But the obviously you can set the barometric pressure, so it's on 2992, which you would expect. Actually, that's interesting. Is that synchronized then? Because I don't think it should be. So if we change the baro here, yeah, it's synchronized. I would have thought that would have been completely independent, but maybe I'm wrong. Obviously, this has got the normal functionality where you can go in here and he says famous last words. Layout, HSI map. Oh, that's cool, isn't it? Map off. Back, PFD, SVT, terrain please, so you get the terrain view if you want it. I actually don't like it. I'd rather just have the view out the window. I can see why it's useful if you're in low visibility in mountains or whatever. But oh, this is some busy airspace, isn't it? Very cool. How are we doing on that descent? We're getting closer to the plot, which is good. You can see it here as well. And how does it look on Navigraph? Pretty straightforward. We can show the piece of paper down here when we get to it. We'll go onto the plate. Obviously, you can see there's some there's a holding pattern if you miss your approach, but hopefully we won't. It's pretty straightforward stuff, to be honest. So we come in at 1900 feet at PJTWI, and fly in level, and then descend visually. Down to 1900. Shall we look from outside at the nearby scenery? Now we're getting a bit lower. It's very flat this side of Australia, isn't it? Although we're at altitude, so it looks flat. Probably is quite hilly actually once you're down at 5,000 feet. You can see the hills over there, look. So just looking at the coastline there, so Perth is right on the end of the water there, so we're heading straight for it. So James says, what sort of systems are actual pilots using to put flights together? It depends. If they're a commercial pilot, they'll be given the flight. They won't make it up themselves. If you're a general aviation pilot, you know, like hobby or leisure pilot, if you want to call it that, sport pilot, they tend to be VFR typically. I guess you get people, you know, doing travelling up and down the coast or whatever. But it's the same, yeah. You would stay out of the airways, I guess, because the amount of hassle of climbing to high altitude, and you've got oxygen, a pressurised plane, and all the rest of it. It's a lot easier to stay at low level. And plus, as soon as you're going IFR and high altitude and airways and the rest of it, you've got a world of radio navigation, radio telephony, and the stakes go up, I guess. Which airport's that? That must be, yeah, it's Perth International. So we're going to fly right over the top of it, which will be quite interesting. How are we doing on that descent? 14,000 feet. Still coming down at a rate of knots. We're on target though to come in and be able to stop at 10,000 feet and then continue our descent, which will be good, and fly low over Perth or over the seaboard and have a good look around as we fly in. Let's slow down a bit more, or reduce power I should say. We're not slowing down, just reducing power, and that manages our descent rate because we're in flight level change mode. So target altitude's 10,000. We needed to set the barometric pressure when we get there to 2985 and go and turn the landing lights back on. You don't like the SVT terrain? Well, there's no point here. It's flat as a pancake. And it's a clear day. So why not have the frame rate back instead of switching it on? I mean, I don't know. Some people like it. So yeah, what he's talking about, if you're wondering, is you can do this. But I don't know. We can look outside and see it. It's like looking on your phone to find out what the weather is versus opening the window, isn't it? Okay, so you can see it's starting to render Perth city centre down there, which is quite cool. We'll be flying over it in a moment. So we're still at 10,000 feet. We're just coming up to 10,000 feet. So a little bit ahead of time. Let's go and turn the landing lights on. And set that barometric pressure, which I still haven't remembered the number, 2985. So Barrow's the outer ring, 2985. So that's now the barometric pressure for the destination. And we'll continue on down on the altitude selector to... Now I don't think there were any restrictions actually on the plate, were there? No, it just talks in terms of getting to 1900 feet for here. So it's once we get past the Perth waypoint. Actually, let's go and have a look outside while we're overhead. See the international airport below us. It's a shame you can see a colour difference in the tile. It's obviously loading assets in on the ground, isn't it? So there's the city. So let's see if we can expedite getting down. Altitude select, let's go for idle and pull the altitude down to 3,000 feet. So we're dropping at 2,500 feet a minute nearly, and we should get a nice view out the window. So let's just go and turn head tracking on to do this. Get a nice view of Perth as we descend on the trek in. It's a good point actually, I ought to go and check that track. Let's go and yeah, it's fine. So we'll reduce the target airspeed in a moment as well. Before we do that, whoops. A few boats in the harbour down there. Let's have a look from outside, shall we? Okay, we're getting closer to the ground. I think we can see Jandakot over there. So down to 4,000. If you remember looking at the chart, we're just coming in down here, look. So we need to be at 1,900 feet by the time we get to this point for the turn in. So we'll slow down as well. Actually, it will slow itself down once we will level out at 3,000. Here we go, we've just captured 3,000 feet, and obviously the aircraft is idle, so it's slowing it down on its own. So you should see these radiuses change, hopefully, to make more of a box shape as we slow down. Be interesting to see if they do. Let's see how well they've done this. So the airspeed is falling off. It's not actually, is it? It's going to do like a big smooth turn. So let's go and put in our (1,900 feet) flight level change. Just as we go out over the bay. Got 1,000 feet to go. Are any boats down there? Can't see any. Okay, here comes the turn. It's very odd that it's going to do such a gentle, big sweeping turn, or is it? Or is it just the rendering isn't going to match the reality? I think it isn't, is it? It's going to cut it off. Oh, no. The airplane's trying to do this big sweeping turn, and it's turning more than it needs to. It's quite amusing. I was wondering what it would do with this, to be honest. So let's go and zoom this in again. Okay, we're just coming up to 1,900 feet, so I'm going to start increasing the throttle to manage the airspeed. We don't want to get much slower than 160. Oh, we're going to get a low flyover of a... Is that a boat down there? Some sort of... Can I zoom in on the camera to get a good look at it? Some sort of survey vessel, isn't it? I've got the seafront simulations add-on installed, which is why we're seeing so many boats around. And seeing ones that you wouldn't normally see in the sim. There's a military ship there, look. Okay, start concentrating instead of sightseeing. So there's the runway right out in front of us. Okay, so get out. Stage of flaps, and let's turn off the autopilot now. I have control. Let's give it a wiggle. Oh, it's quite sluggish at 140 knots. just mindful that the flaps take a long time to travel in this aeroplane, so 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 degrees. 17, 18. There, 26 degrees. Should have a look at it from outside while we're nice and stable. Looks the part, doesn't it? A little bit high now, of course. This is the problem when you're sightseeing and messing around with the aeroplane along the way. Fly over the freeway. Now, with the knowledge we came in at about 70 knots over the runway before we run out of lift, I'm going to target 100 knots. Obviously we've not got any details on the real plane of managing this. Starting to be affected by turbulence. It's really being affected. Look at it drifting over the runway at 70 knots again. We're down anyway. It's very difficult to know what direction it's pointing because of the geometry of the cabin. It's quite difficult to know if you're side slipping or not, or just maybe it's just because I'm not used to it yet. Big jet just came in alongside us. This is quite nicely modelled for a stock airport, isn't it? It's very good. Still got kamikaze vans though, hey? So we're going to find somewhere to park. Yeah, the lorry wants to have a race. Oh, another kamikaze lorry. They're all coming for me, aren't they? All of them. Where do we put the aeroplane then? On this. Let's go and put it outside this hangar over here. It's not really a hangar, is it? It's a warehouse. Okay, that was fun. So let's see if we can find our way around the switches to switch everything back off. I'm just trying to remember what I switched on the way in. Oops, Don't want ignition on, I want it off. There we go. So we should now be able to come around the corner and that's as far as we can go because it does clipping at the edge of the body of the aircraft. Here we go. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was a flight from, where did we take off from again? Carnarvon down to Jandakot near Perth. And we, along the way, I guess the biggest takeaway is we looked at programming airways into the G1000 at the start, which is something that I had forgotten how to do until I reviewed it before the flight. And also how to get Simbrief flight plans into the G1000 as well, which is not obvious either. But yeah, great little aeroplane, and it's quite cheap as well. So I think the only thing we saw along the way, well, it's just lacking in documentation, really, to be honest. I think as soon as that is sorted, there's a few things with the flight model where it seems to be very fast at idle, even with full flaps. It came barreling in, and you know it's a job to slow it down, so you have to be aware of that and sort it in advance. But other than that, it was great fun. So, okay, 845 Sim came in alongside me. Brilliant. Right, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll see you all again soon. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And as Leah said, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and I think if you click the bell icon at the top corner, it tells you when I'm online or something like that. I don't understand YouTube. I just make videos. It's funny, I think I wind people up that are trying to make it as content creators, because when they discover my lack of knowledge of YouTube, they kind of wring their hands with me. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll see you again soon.